All right. Thank you guys, everybody, for being here. I'm sure we'll have a few more trickling in the coming minutes. This is our June meetup featuring the one and only Colm McEvilly. McEvilly. Sorry if I butchered that.
Oh, you're good. I butchered it myself.
Colm's involvement in real estate development goes back to his childhood, actually. He's the son of a mechanical plumbing contractor, spending his early years sorting fittings, excavating, and learning to read blueprints. He went on to receive a bachelor's degree in engineering from Cal Poly and then began a career in the HVAC.
Literally have my jackhammer right here. Literally have my jackhammer. Yeah. So
he began investing in single-family rentals in Sacramento, and then at 30, he suffered a heart valve failure. After a successful TAVR procedure and recovery, his entire perspective changed and realized he needed to spend his days doing personally fulfilling work. So about 4 years ago in 2018, he took the plunge out of the corporate world and into full-time real estate investing, where he leveraged his engineering background and the data-driven investing methodology that he had learned. So today he works with investors directly, getting to know them and their goals personally, and learning from their challenges and successes. Being part of an investor's journey from the first intro chat to seeing their dreams come to fruition is Colm's greatest inspiration and drives him to deliver his best every single day. So without further ado, I will let the man himself, Colm, take it away.
Sweet. Well, this is a pretty intimate crowd, which means I'm not going to spend much time on my introduction, but basically my resume comes from exposure of working and partnering with two groups that together have raised about 300 million from retail investors. I'm not personally responsible for all that money, but I'm involved in teams, and one of the attendees today, Eric Blue, I think is probably more responsible for the money than myself. And we can talk more maybe on another call about the value of a scaled marketing funnel, because I'm the closer, and someone like Eric, who's the growth hacker, would bring in hundreds of thousands of leads every month, and I would get them when they're already warm as a salesperson. But hopefully some of the tricks and tips we talk about today will get your journey started, because really I'm not going to lay out really too many details, but I'm going to give you resources and you'll go do your work. You'll figure out how those resources apply to your business and your style, and then I'd be open to a conversation with anybody afterwards. But the point is, why am I helping? Well, I'm helping because there's 8 million accredited investors in the United States, and anybody in this industry, if they're doing well,
13 million.
There's 13 million now. Okay, so
yep.
that number was a 2019 number that talks about the growth of wealth because of COVID. And at the end of COVID, the average person had, I don't remember what it was, but a significantly more amount of money in their bank account for a variety of reasons. But I was just going to hop in. I don't want this to be a complete snooze fest. So I thought, let's start with some questions for the audience. And think about your business. So, my mind's a swirling vortex of entropy, and it's really hard for me to format this into 1 hour. But I thought let's start with questions for the audience. So the first thing is when you're hearing these questions, make a list, and if you have a list on your XSITE Capital notebook that you received if you're an investor. And if you're getting thirsty, you can drink off your XSITE Capital water bottle that I have.
Hey, where's my swag?
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, send me your address. I'll make sure you get one.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I felt really special and important when I received my investor gift set, because they were very personal things that I actually will use. And so that's just a side tangent tip of, are you sending your investors appreciation? What are you doing to make them, not only to make you top of mind for them, but to make them feel appreciated? Because I felt pretty magnificent when I received a big old box, even though it went to one of my rentals, but that's a different discussion. But I put the wrong address in LLC stuff. But so the first question is, do you have a formal agreement with your marketing and sales team that defines who's responsible for what tasks? And this goes back to streamlining and efficiencies within processes. If you don't have defined defined actions for each member of the team, then you're likely to be reinventing the wheel every time, and time is money. So that's just something. So I can send you these questions afterwards, but it's something to think about when considering your business. What are the things that you are not tracking that the industry leaders are, and what do you think would help your business to implement, or if you were to implement those things? So if you attend a lot of conferences, what are you hearing from the people that you would like to be like, and from the businesses that you want to grow to be? What are they tracking? And that could be an example of the different types of leads. What type of information within that lead are they tracking? That could be an example of the dollars per ad, the cost per investor, the timeline. Obviously, there's a certain amount of timeline that it takes from the initial contact to get them all the way through your pipeline and to become an actual investor. And knowing that timeline, how are you adjusting the saturation of your market and reaching out to people? So, what automated reminders do you have for your sales team to reach out to your investors? So an example is, are you having conversations with your investors, or are your sales teams having conversations with investors and creating an early notification system based on the investors' interests in certain topics? Are you reaching out to all your investors post-webinar? Are you reaching out to them when there's a current event? Perfect example, tomorrow night, Grow Capitalist is having a webinar on the interest rates. That's a great thing of value, because it's going to impact how investors are going to be thinking when they're looking at two investments, and one of them has a bridge loan and one of them has fixed interest. Or let's just say one of them has an adjustable interest and one of them has fixed interest, and things to think about when the monthly debt service is going to be changing potentially. Is your marketing and sales strategy aligned around the investor's journey? What the heck does that even mean? So, really you have to ask yourself, what is your average customer like? And I thought of a friend, Saint Investments, who they have a very intimate relationship with very, very wealthy people. So that's a very high level white glove service, and their sales process and their marketing process might be different compared to another company that is super scaled and they're busting out 5 to 7 emails a week and doing a lot more outreach. So how do you think those two companies are changing their marketing and their path flow, and how does that apply to your business, and how would you make an adjustment to align with maybe the depth of relationship that you might have with investors? Actually, I'm going to interrupt myself and quiz Leslie here. So Leslie, do you feel like your investor relationships are really deep, or do you feel like they're pretty shallow, but you have a lot of them?
No, our investor relationships are very, very deep.
And then how does that impact the type of communication that you're having because of that?
No, I think it impacts it significantly because from our perspective, the communication is authentic. We are communicating with our investors with their best interests at heart. It's like these are people that we're building long-term relationships with, and because of that, is leading to like an organic growth of our investor community. I guess primarily because I don't know if it's the same thing with a much larger business, but starting off with your close circle to build your investor base, and then providing value to that circle, so our relationship with our investors, our current group of investors right now, is very deep, and we intend to try to maintain that same kind of relationship as we expand as well.
Yeah, so also to build on that, you might also be able to get away with more informal or more personal language in your copywriting.
Okay.
So another one is, are you assigning priority levels and values to your investors, and do you have defined tasks based on the level of priority that your investor has? An example would be, if someone has more money a year, are you reaching out to them more frequently? Are you even tracking that? How are you tracking that? and what's the typical follow-up look like for different investors within your agency? Because the whole point is time's a limited resource, money's a limited resource in some sense, and you want to focus on the 80-20 Pareto rule. 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your outreach. So how do I really focus on that 20%?
Hey, Colm, how do you track all that?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, we could let's jump right in. Perfect. So a couple different ways that I've tracked it, and I currently track it is based on priority levels 1 through 5. It's pretty simple. Priority 1.
Are you using a CRM?
So it's a great question. In Active Campaign, you can use tags, whereas in HubSpot, they're called deals. In Pipeline, it's a particular contact note. So your CRM will adjust and force you to change how you track a lot of this information. So perfect example is if I have someone that's a potential GP partner, I would have them as a number 1 priority. If I have someone that can invest $400,000 or more a year, I'd have them as a number 2. If they're accredited, number 3. If they're not accredited but close to being accredited, that's a priority 4. If they have no business really talking to you, that's priority 5. And that's something that I've been using in other businesses outside of real estate with different terms, and they are good at really helping focusing the outreach. So just think about how are you prioritizing your time for those different priority levels. And that's a real high level review of the priority lists, but it does help focus your time. So the last thing is people invest with people, not companies. So if you'll notice, some of the more successful companies have been focusing on individual branding. Like if I was at XSITE Capital, I might even consider breaking out Tenny, Leslie, and Julius and Braden, too. And because they're going to have different people are going to respond to them differently. And so you can have your core company, but then you could do individual branding, and that could help on numerous fronts in terms of getting you increased exposure and stuff like that. And so why do these investors invest with you? And when was the last time that you asked them, why do they like you? Going back to Eric, the number one rule in marketing is ask people what they want and then give it to them. And so are you documenting what they're telling you? It's very simple. And then how do you isolate those people that are telling you X and isolate those people that are telling you Y? And then through segmented ads, targeting that message, and through segmented ads, targeting this message.
So, Colm, what has been your best way in getting this kind of feedback from investors? Because sometimes sending out surveys, response rates are really low.
Yeah.
So how do you get this this feedback from investors?
So usually if you're going to do a survey, it'd probably be in the middle of a webinar, not at the end when they're tired, and not at the beginning. The whole point of a survey is to get them to take action.
You're talking about that's more like a poll.
Yeah, true.
Like a webinar poll. They're much shorter than, like when you say survey, are you talking about like a lengthy, like Survey Monkey type of thing? You're muted.
Whatever gets the answers that we're looking for.
Yeah.
If it's a poll that is shorter, that makes sense, or just something, whatever kind of feedback mechanism that works best to get that information, so you're able to give investors exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, usually I'd stay away from
most successful in your experience.
Most successful, stay away from long surveys. People are going to check out. Also, don't put in message boxes. Put in things that are, oh, Kim's joining, nice. Put in things that can be isolated. An example is if you have a message box where they fill out a message box, then when you go to search through all the responses, you're going to get a variety of things, and you can't isolate and differentiate the different investors. But keep them short. Also have questions, and when you're having these conversations, just simply ask them. And one of the ways that you can soften up that question is you might say, hey, some of our investors are saying they like us because of our, this and this approach, data-driven approach, or they really like this opportunity because of the LTV on this project. Why do you particularly like this property, and why do you, or this investment, and why do you feel comfortable investing with us? And so you lead with a question before you actually, or you lead with a statement before you actually ask the question. And then, going back to the priority levels, you would never say, you never say, hey, I think that, you never say, how much do you plan to invest this year? You might spitball a number and bracket them. And so you might say, hey, it sounds like you're pretty involved in real estate. Are you looking at, you did 600,000 investments last year? That sounds like something that you're trying to double this year. What are you looking at? And they might go, oh, well, I'm not trying to do 600,000 this year. I'm trying to do blah, blah, blah. And so you soften your questions with a different question, really, but you still get what you're looking for. Is you're trying to bracket them and get information on how much they're looking to invest, or you're trying to get the feedback on why they like you. But you have to soften it a little bit without being too direct.
One thing that when Colm worked with us, he's very good at keeping it conversational. You don't want to just sit there and ask them a bunch of questions like they're in a job interview. And I remember, you'd have your form that you were filling out on the screen, but they don't know it. And you're just casually having a conversation with them. And as they drop nuggets of information, you just fill it in. People don't like filling out online forms. If you look at any of our funnels, they ask two things: first name and email address. And then throughout the sales process, we gather the rest of the information. And then when, of course, you have an investment ready, if someone is chomping at the bit to get in one of your investment, that's the best time to hit them up, because they're willing to give you all sorts of information at that time.
Yeah. Side note, Eric's one of my best friends, so I don't care if he chimes in, but if anybody else chimes in, I swear to God. But yeah, that's a great point. So when you're asking these questions, I might get off a half-hour phone call with 3 pages worth of information that hits all those points. And we could talk more about that in another call, about different call structuring dialogues. That's actually things that we'll talk about at the end.
And you hit on a little bit earlier, but the one thing that Colm is really good at is definitely more relationship type of sales. Other salespepeople tend to be more transactional. They're more about getting in there and getting it done. And in my experience, and then working with different salespeople, I think the relationship type of sales is much more effective, particularly if you're in between investment cycles. If you don't have any projects right now, your salespeople, if you have a relationship, you're calling them all the time, right? You're keeping that relationship going. If your sales department is more transactional, you're only calling them when you have something to offer, and they may or may not feel that connection with you in between investments.
Yeah, that actually builds on 2 points. The first point is, how can you the whole point of this, the investor relations department, is to increase the life cycle value of the investor. And the best way to do that is constantly hit them in the face with value. So I'm information that's value. And then we do the raise. And my sensei would be pissed that my hands were this low, but the point is that an example of providing value, and we'll show this later, is I was reviewing a tool book, and I was reviewing certain market studies and the YouTube videos. You guys, XSITE Capital's hosting a monthly review. You guys do your underwriting videos on YouTube. Those are examples of adding value when you don't have a project. It builds trust, it builds credibility. It touches on the persuasion aspect of one of the books I'm going to recommend here. And so Eric's right. It's about adding value even when you don't have something to sell. And then they'll always pick up the phone.
I have a question, especially on the conversational piece. I think that's like a very powerful skill, but like how you manage to do that and balance that with production pressure. For example, let's say you gotta meet this certain number of investors, or you gotta raise this amount within this period of time. Like how are you able to balance that, Colm? Because I think that's probably what a lot of our audience struggles with. That pressure of raising, especially for people that are trying to raise for the first time. You know,
Yes.
how are you able to just keep that pressure away and keep a conversation and still be effective?
It goes back to knowing who your investors are and knowing who you should focus on. That's the very simplest thing is, although I'm always adding value, I'm trying to strategically add that value, and I am protective of my time. And the ways that I'm protective of my time, sometimes you don't know. Like I've had a bunch of phone calls with someone, and a lot of people don't want to lie to you. A lot of people want to talk themselves up. But when you're experienced at the calls, you know the types of things that reek money. You know the people that have money after a certain time, but every once in a while there's someone that slips through that doesn't have money, and it's not a bad thing, but you'll know that they're likely not a good fit for your projects. And so it's that prioritizing on the right people that will proactively protect your time. And again, this is a multi-year relationship. You want to make sure that these people are not only qualified for your investments, but their investment criteria aligns with what you have to offer, so that you don't get a phone call 10 months later, them upset. Because them being upset, they're going to tell 5 people, and they might tell, 2 people each. Now you have, now you have 20 people that are upset at you. And so it's really about prioritizing your time. But that was a good question. Does that answer it, or does that make sense? Yeah. And it takes time, but that's the whole point of when you know which people you should focus on, those are the ones that you always want to reach out with value, even when you don't have a raise. So I thought that it would be a good idea to recommend some books that if anybody reads them, they can reach back out to me. I'll send a book list. I'll have my email here at the end of the call, and I could send them the book list with the good read score and all that stuff. But read these books and put your own spin on it. We talked about some of the stuff from Persuasion with from Robert Cialdini, and we're going to build on that in the next 15 minutes. Annie Duke, this is it's called Thinking in Bets, and it really helps you get inside the investor mindset of when they're rationalizing a decision, because so often investors will make assumptions and invest or not invest based on unvalidated assumptions. And so you'll have to know their their biases, that they're self-fulfilling. And this book really hits on that well. Traction's all about systems. And I know that you guys at XSITE do EOS intensively. Braden flies out and meets you on a quarterly basis, and you guys you have your weekly L10s and stuff like that. But the Traction's all about creating systems, and the systems help create a funnel. And the whole goal of the funnel is to have, sales leads filling up your pipeline so much that they're throwing up all over you. And then your salespeople don't have to be needy, and you can really focus on the right investors. Hope is Not a Strategy. That's a book all about tactics for dealing with higher level investors, more intelligent, financially, those that have like a financial acumen. The Challenger Customer is really good for giving you specific things to talk about. Brian Burke came out with a book that I think everybody in this room probably knows about. It's called Hands-Off Investor. The reason anybody in this room should read it is because it will help you address and respond to some of the most common questions. And then the one that was really beaten to my head growing up at my previous career was You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. It talks about the customer facing or the investor facing activities, and specifically the call dialogue and the call structures. And that's something that I recommend. Never Split the Difference. That has a lot to do with Chris Voss. He's a former FBI negotiation agent. It's all about setting the frame. And it could have to do with the energy in the call, but it really talks about the frame. And Pitch Anything, it's also about the framing, but it's about delicately getting inside the trust bubble of an investor's head. And then I got a book that's coming out in a couple months that if you're interested in it, reach out to me, and when it's available, I'll make sure that you have it. But building on this, the first book that we talked about, influence, there's really 6 powerful tactics. And I know we're kind of short on time here, but I wanted to just go through my thoughts on the 6 tactics that are associated with this last book. And so there's scarcity, and we could talk about how building a funnel creates scarcity. There's social proof, which is an example, could be investor referrals. So there's a lot of people that are putting up investor referrals, or investor testimonials. There's authority. So I have a couple examples of how people are being authority figures in the industry. There's liking. I have examples of where people are doing things that build the trust and the credibility. There's escalating commitments. So an example of this is when you're asking someone to do a soft commit, you're not really just asking them to do a soft commit. What you're actually doing is you're getting them to say yes to a tinier thing. And then when the real raise comes out and you ask for another yes, their head's already moving and it's harder for them to stop the head, you know? So escalating commitments have a lot to do with selling to the level of trust, and the level of trust as that gets bigger and bigger, asking for more and more. And then exchange. And so this is about gifts, right? So, and I got a gift for investing before, but it could also be content that's shared, industry insight. And I'm going to show a fantastic thing that I saw recently, which was an investor toolbook. But so does anybody have any questions on this so far? No? Okay. Well, so, and just cut me off. I cut myself off. I have ADHD. But so the first thing is really scarcity. So when you're going into a conversation with an investor, do you already have ideas and things that can make this investor think that this is a time pending or a limited opportunity? Sometimes it could be cap rates, you know, talking about the cap rates are going to expand or they're going to compress, how that affects you. Right now, the interest rates are really hot steady. So that's something to think about. The next thing is social proof. So let's see. So yeah, so social proof, it really has a lot to do with the testimonials and the reviews. And so if a quick tip that I recommend is if you can consolidate a list of investor testimonials, put that in a hyperlink in your email. And that's something that can help build that trust and build the sales. You know, I just kind of want to dip in because I am concerned about time. But so authority is the next thing that we talk about, or not, is the next thing that the book speaks on. And really it's about knowing who you are. And so one of the best ways to do that is to grow your marketing funnel. And so I can send anybody this, but I think this is probably one of the most important things out there. People don't realize that we're really a marketing company with a real estate product. And there's events out there like this one in San Diego that I'm planning on going to. And I think that everyone should just look at their business and look at this agenda and say, if this stuff, if you don't think this can grow your business, you're in the wrong industry. You know, this is an example of what they presented on this year. Next year, I imagine it's going to be more focused on short form video. And that's kind of the topic that they covered this year. You know, so the next thing, the next type of thing that can help build credibility and trust is people just flat out liking you. So a couple examples is through the types of form or the types of updates that we get. I really like Omar Khan's personality that you can see in his email. You know, like who starts an email and does free form like this? I just think it's so fun. And so he's probably one of the 5 people that I actually really like to receive his emails from. Rob Overstreet from Harbor Drive has a really well written monthly format. Most of these things are really boring and they don't provide value. I really like Lone Star Capital's focus on focus on underwriting and the numbers. The reason I'm sharing this with you is there's distinctly different personalities that are coming out in these newsletters, and you need to understand your investor and understand how you can change your newsletter to better resonate with that investor base. So Omar Khan, pretty informal. Rob Beardsley, very, very analytical. Rob Overstreet is just well written and in depth, but very long too. So some people might not resonate with that. And then Vic Rea is just more motivational, inspiring, and so really so the next thing that I was hoping to get at, does anybody have questions on that yet, by the way? Do you understand the value of differentiating between the different types of writing, and how you're going to have sometimes a copywriter for your emails, you're going to have a copywriter for your like Facebook ads, and you're going to have a copywriter for your webinars. All three of those are very different, but it needs to have the same type of investor in mind. And
so you recommend hiring professional copywriters for like your newsletters and stuff like that, or writing them yourself?
So I think that one, you as an executive at XSITE should focus on higher value add activity. So I recommend that you have a copywriter, but it's really hard to find someone in real estate. I've seen the companies I've worked for go through so many copywriters, because a lot of them, even if they come from real estate, it's residential, and that doesn't necessarily transfer over to the commercial side. It doesn't necessarily transfer over to the syndication side. The same thing applies with the marketing agencies. Most of these marketing agencies don't understand our business, and even if they're an expert in some sort of CRM, as a syndicator, explaining how our business works to someone that might be an expert, it doesn't necessarily code switch. But I would recommend getting a copywriter on a short-term contract, and give them a test project and see how they do, and you can decide whether or not you want to continue with that relationship, or if you want to move on. I bet you it's going to take you 3 or 4 copywriters or 5 copywriters to get someone really good, but okay. I still think it's worth your time to try to give them a chance, because there are much better writers out there, but some of them just don't get the bubbly nature. They don't make it exciting. Some of them write like they're 12-year-olds. Some of them are way too direct, and you know what I mean. If you're falling asleep reading it, and then they'll say things that aren't applicable to our business. But I think you should still try to get a copywriter.
Yeah, the especially for like email or long form content, the best thing I've seen, if you can find a copywriter that can interview you, because you're not going to find someone that is going to know what you know. And we do this with Neil Bawa. Our copywriters will meet with him, spend 15 minutes in kind of an interview. They'll get the gist of the topics he wants to cover, and then they'll fill in the blanks. And we call it sizzle. That's the biggest challenge we found with all our copywriters is, you want to be almost borderline clickbaity, but not. I mean, because you want to create enough curiosity to get your emails opened or your blogs read.
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard to find someone. The next thing is escalating commitments. This is just a strategy that it's a small commitment followed by a larger and larger one. So an example I gave earlier is getting someone to commit to a webinar, getting someone then to commit to a soft commit, getting someone to commit to review the PPM and giving you feedback on the PPM, and then getting them to decide whether or not they're going to move forward with the investment. People invest to the level of trust. Therefore, if you give them smaller and smaller pebbles to eat, before they know it, you have a big old rock that they're gonna bite on, maybe a big old meal that they're gonna bite on. So, and then the last thing is exchange. So I think a perfect example of exchange is when you're at the airport or you're at the mall and somebody comes up and they might be hard of hearing, and they give you a rose and they say that the rose is free, but you would like a $1 donation in return for the rose. You know, that's a huge trick that people use because people feel morally obligated to give back. And one of the ways that we can apply that in our industry is gifts. And I received this today in my inbox, and I just thought, holy crap, this thing is fantastic. It has all of this information really well organized. And I thought, I'm going to read this because this is going to help me make a more prudent investment decision. And so this is an example of a gift, and it builds alignment, it builds trust with investors, and it's something that you should integrate into your business if you haven't. Hey, Kim.
Yeah, I like that one too, Colm.
Yeah. So well, yeah. Did you make that?
Eric.
So
no, well, that's a good example. I mean,
Yeah.
our brand is nerd, data-driven real estate. You're reading all these, reports, CoStar, Forbes, whatever it is. You're reading that stuff anyways. Create a collection like that and post it on your website. We've kind of positioned ourselves as being the go-to source for high quality data in the multifamily real estate space. And most of it's not data we generated, we just compile it and make it easy for people to get.
Yeah, exactly. So that was an example of always providing value through an exchange of a gift, right? Another thing that I have off record here, but it's about systems, and the book Traction that was recently recommended. The biggest difference between getting experience and becoming an expert is looking at how you respond to the information that you've received through the outcome. What's the learning opportunities, and what does that teach us what do the results teach us from a sales perspective? And so systems can help highlight some of these areas of opportunity, because the numbers don't lie. But in some cases of underwritings, as I've seen, garbage in, garbage out. So make sure you're tracking the right thing. But if it's not measured, it doesn't really matter in your business. So there's a real intentional point of tracking the right thing. And so what are the things that you think you should be tracking? And just know that there's customer facing activity and metrics that you should be tracking, and non-customer facing activities and metrics that you should be tracking. So the customer facing activities are when you're pulling together all this information from a phone call, and I can show you later some basic guidelines of like the compelling events, the investor mindset, just their general background information. Those are some things that are customer facing pieces of information that you should be tracking. And then non-customer facing activities might be, the costs associated with your per lead. How are you focusing on scaling your time, whether it be with VAs? I mean, that's one of the reasons that I even started my relationship with Leslie in the first place. That, and we both love soccer, but he had questions on how to scale his business with VAs. And VAs, software, and documenting processes are really the key three things that you could probably first implement into your business before you start adding a ton of in-house personnel. You might want to try contracts. But let's see. I don't really know where to go to that, other than the value of the VA is they can do things that you don't know how to do. They can do things that you don't like to do, and they could do things that you shouldn't be doing, because your goal is to free you up for higher business value activities. And the whole point of the funnel is to overload and inundate your salespeople with leads. And I'm not sure, is Braden and Leslie, are you guys the only people taking the call from investors, or?
Yeah, Julius also.
So what would happen to your business if you had a few systems where you basically 4x'd your leads per per week. Would you be able to handle that? And then do you feel like right now you're tracking things that would allow you to appropriately follow up with those investors?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could always be doing a better job, but I think where we're at in terms of, where we're at as a company, it's really just me and Julius leading point on the investor side. But I always try, if somebody comes in, I want to interface with them in a 2 to 3 week period, and we're not overwhelmed with that bandwidth yet. But eventually, as we start to scale, that will change.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty interesting. So we could talk offhand about ways to make sure that you're tracking the right stuff. I do want to give you some more value, and there's some media that if you reach out to me, I can send you a list of this. There's a discussion with Abel Pacheco and myself where we talk about how to basically nurture investors. There's a discussion with CPI, who August is on the call. And the same thing is how do you increase that the level of intimacy with your investors? And then there's 2 really good podcasts, one with the writer of Pitch Anything, and another one with the guy of Never Split the Difference, Chris Vosh. So those 4 are probably the 4 key podcasts and media content that I would recommend anybody that wants to build their business and become better salespeople. They watch those. Some of the things that we're really constricted on time here, but some of the things that we didn't talk about because of the lack of time is we didn't talk about lead capturing systems. We didn't talk about call inbound and outbound tracking metrics and the specifics. We didn't talk about call script dialogues and how you might have bonding and rapport, and then you'll have an upfront contract where you set the purpose and the intention of the meeting. Something I was talking to Braden about. That call script dialogue is going to be coming from you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. That book will help you with customer facing activities more than anything. And then the structure of call notes. We didn't talk about, are you geo-targeting? Are you geo-tagging? Why are you geo-tagging? Well, you might be geo-tagging if a bunch of people are at an event, and then you can specifically target the people at the event. We didn't talk about if you're asking people how they heard about you so that you can give feedback to your marketing team on where to better target, these leads. And then these are the 3 general notes the 3 general sections for investor call notes that I think are really important. Is just the general notes where you have their age, their location, their personal lifestyle stuff. The importance of that is you can consolidate and have a bunch of information to reach out to these people so that it is exported and through your CRM into a list. And whenever something similar to those items come up, then you could reach out to them. They think it's very personal. They feel like they're very special and unique. And the reality is you're trying to add value to them in that phone call. Another section is the compelling events or the unique buying impacts, making sure that you have a section in your call notes about what motivates them and impacts their decision-making is really important. A perfect example is if they're a cash flow investor, if they have a health issue, if they are not the real decision maker, but their partner is. Those are things that are important to know, because then you might want to get that partner on the call next time. And then the last section is really the questions and the investor mindset. The questions that people ask you tells you a lot about their preparation and their background. And knowing those questions, you can know how to better reach out to them. And then another thing we didn't talk about is the marketing calendar and the frequency at which we should reach out to people. A webinar prep list. These are all things that will help with the funnel and help streamline your processes. But again, we don't have that much time. And we can have another call, and then examples of value on this call that you received. The key things show up and add value. If you're cold calling someone or you're giving them a warm call, I took a lot of pride in the fact that every time I reached out to them, it was intentional with bringing some sort of value. I never, ever had to pitch anybody because they felt like when they got off the phone call, that was worth their time. And then eventually the deal will be worth their time. but an example of value that you received on this webinar is the book list I can share with you. I can share a media contact list. I can share with you the event list, and then obviously there's a toolbox that I recommend you review, just so you know how to speak more informed to investors. Here's my contact email if anybody has questions, and if you have anything specific you want to text me about, some stupid memes or any soccer highlights, true, is acceptable. But that's it. Now I guess I just open up for questions.
First of all, thanks, Colm. That was really good information. Now, looking from the perspective of because our platform provides a lot of education to a lot of people, and a lot of these people are just trying to get into this. This is like their first time trying to get into syndication, and a lot of people struggle with the sales aspect, especially when it comes to talking to investors, because there's this misconception or negative connotation to sales. So how would you tell those people to approach like building their investor base?
Yeah, how to disarm them so that they feel comfortable.
Yes.
So one of the things that you could say, you'll start off with the upfront contract where you establish the purpose of the meeting and the goals of the meeting, and then what the next steps are. And then I'm glad you brought this up. Always cut the call off. Even if they're going to invest, if you have a 15-minute or a 30-minute phone call, cut it off, because you want to leave them wanting you, and encourage them to schedule another call or reach out to you on a cell phone. But going back to your, say we can always have another call, but going back to your original question of how to get it so that they're disarmed, is you could say, I talked to a lot of people and really only 1 in 4 of the individuals are a good fit for our investment. So the purpose of the call today is to make sure that you're a good fit and to learn about your investing goals so that we can better support you. And that kind of disarms them. Another thing too is tell them that you have another call afterwards. And the value of telling them that you have another call after is they don't feel like they're getting trapped into an hour-long pitch fest, So just say, hey, I'm glad that we were able to have this phone call today. We're scheduled for 30 minutes. Is that still good for you? And if they tell you, oh no, I'm only good for 15 minutes, you say, well, I'm only good for 10. Well, I'm just kidding. But yeah, but if they say, yeah, 30 minutes good, you say, fantastic. I do have another call at 30 minutes, but I encourage you to set up another call. What that really does is it shows that your time is valuable, and that they're gonna not feel like you're gonna hound on them until they give you a yes or a no. So establishing the next steps for the call afterwards is important, and then establishing that the real reason of the call is to learn about them, not to pitch them on a deal. And they'll start asking questions, and you'll notice that when you start having more and more conversations with investors, my mom's bringing over some plants. It's very nice. When you start having so many calls with investors, you'll know that there's process questions and then there's deal related questions. So you're gonna start separating your calls from a discovery call and the types of questions you would have on a discovery call to the types of questions you would have on a due diligence call. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. My mom's bringing me some plants. I love her so much. Oh my gosh.
Anybody have any other questions for Colm? I guess the floor is open. Anybody can jump in and ask questions.
Thank you, Colm, for gracing us with your presence and for sharing such valuable material with us. Sorry, I joined a little late. I was tied up with something.
I'm pissed. I took it personal.
Yeah, but you've always been a great member of our community, and we appreciate you dearly, and that's why we we invited you to share some of your gems with us. I mean, a lot of the things that you were saying, I was kind of taking note of. But to the last comment that you made about making prospects or people you're talking to, potential investors, feel like your time is valuable. About the flip side, what are the strategies to making them feel like their time is valuable, that they are valuable, that you appreciate them, and what are your tips for those?
Really, I feel like when you're not pitching somebody, and when you're not, that's the real thing. Every time I'm on the phone call, I'm trying to add value, and so that might be the answer. And I think it's extremely disrespectful just to call someone for the deal. What's going to happen is, as you build these systems, and we could talk more about it on another call, as you build systems with phone burner and these other automated call loggings, like Just Call, and there's another one. When you're reaching out to these people and you say, hey, blah, 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 thing of value, they're gonna say, oh, thank you. And then they might go, oh, by the way, I have a liquidity event coming up, or, I have some IRA money right now that I didn't know that I had when I last talked to you. Do you have anything, in the hopper? Do you have any deals? And that's going to happen. Really, they're unarmed. There's not going to be a lot of pressure, and it's just going to start happening. Part of that is going back to focusing on the responsive investors that actually have the ability to invest, and prioritizing and focusing on the right investors,
Fantastic.
So, I mean, like you guys, I know that you guys are focusing on a few groups, and I would imagine all those people in the groups, you're going to the conference pretty soon here. That's at the end of June, and you have two conferences, right? So It's like you're going to focus on those people probably a little bit differently, because I imagine the physician one is going to be a slam dunk, and then the other one is just kind of like a cesspool of everybody trying to do the same thing, and also trying to shake Shaquille O'Neal's hand. So, but yeah, I think there's so much to be discussed on here, but the two biggest takeaways is show up, add value, and then implement systems on the non-customer facing side of your business. Implement scale on the non-customer facing side of your business.
I have another question. What advice would you give people like when they're going out to these conferences? Like how does someone stand out? You just mentioned like the conference is a cesspool of everybody wanting the same thing.
Yeah.
So you as a business owner stand out from the rest?
Yeah, well, going there with an intent, knowing who you want to connect with, and knowing your value proposition and what's your unique business offering is really important. And I think you should keep it to 2 or 3 lines. It's not necessarily an elevator pitch. It's a trunk. It's something smaller. Like when I think of XSITE Capital, I think you guys have some of the most conservative underwritings, and you focus on that North Carolina market, and you're looking for partners in that area, and that can quickly disqualify, or that can quickly save you time from partnering with people that don't focus on that area, or don't focus on doing the particular type of projects. From investor standpoint, you guys, you're helping grow your investors' wealth through tax leveraged investments. Your number one goal is asset preservation, followed by wealth generation. Those are your 2 goals. And if that's something that interests of you, I could set you up on a phone call with our partner Braden, and he could learn more about you and see if what we have to offer aligns with your needs, something like that.
Yeah.
But
thank you so much, Colm. That's a great insight for sure.
I think this is one of those situations where it's good intentions, and then with the Google spreadsheet over here, I was slammed this weekend. I'm building a house with my dad, and which goes back to, I think people should spend as much time with their loved ones as they can while they can. And that's why I'm doing that. But but I do feel like the presentation here could have been a little bit more structured, but the content's good. And I promise if anybody reaches out to me and goes through the books, I'd be more than happy to have phone calls on the topics in the books. To me, it's exciting and it's fun. And it's what I love to do. I want to be on 50 investor phone calls a week that are scheduled. You know, that's my goal. I loved it. Eric loaded me up at my old job. It was fantastic. So
would you be willing to share the presentation with the signing, like everybody signed up for the?
if they want this, yeah, it's
Actually, it's packed with some good content, particularly the links that you do have in there. So certainly, it could be valuable.
Yeah, send it to your VA so they can make it look pretty, and then send it out.
Exactly. They have a wonderful marketing personnel on their team that's really spunky. It's cool. So
that's awesome.
Anyway,
Thanks, Colm.
Thank you.
Go.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. So are there any questions from anyone? A lot of familiar faces here.
Heck yeah.
Actually, I don't want to take it over. Leslie and Brady are running this meetup, so I'm probably just taking a backseat a little bit.
No worries. Colm, quickly talk about the referral piece and your experience. Do you have any creative ways to procure them, and are you communicating with them differently versus just another lead, so to speak?
Yeah. You know, one of the ways that you could ask for a referral is say, you know, instead of saying, do you know anybody that you could refer us to? You can say something like, a lot of our investors have been finding success and value in this content. Do you mind sharing it with them? And just ask them to share it. Or you could just say, I'm all hopped up on caffeine over here, so I'm a little scatterbrained, but I will tell you that Dan Hanford has an investor referral program. It's probably, I don't know, I think this is fine to say. But if you're an investor at Dan Hanford's group, then he pays out investors, and there's a legal way to do it. But if you think about the cost per investor that you might have on your marketing, you know, it could be thousands and thousands of dollars versus an referral incentive. And all you would have to do is send an email that shows that they introduced you, or they introduced you to that investor, and then don't even advertise it. But just say, hey, this is a gesture of our gratitude, and this applies for everyone that you know. And that's one way that you could probably have a much lower dollars per investor cost, is by having compensated. And well, it's not compensation. There's a way to structure it legally that I would recommend you talk to your syndication lawyer about, because you're probably going to spend on average $3,500 per investor if you go through the traditional ads, versus if you have some sort of structure where investors somehow feel motivated to talk about your sexy projects that brought them a bunch of returns, and bring in their friends.
Right.
You know, that's one way to do it, that I'm aware of. Usually I just ask people, and I never even ask them to introduce. I never ask to have someone share a project. I asked to have someone share a report, because then the call to action is that if they found something valuable in the report, they're going to have a conversation with me anyway. And then I could figure out, they might even not be accredited. And if they're not accredited, then the conversation turns into, let me educate you and help you get accredited. But they're not going to be a high time priority, but they will be important, because they might know somebody else.
Right.
You know? But I think that's probably the way to do it, is ask someone to share information versus a deal, and then and say how it's been seen as really valuable to helping our other investors make prudent investment decisions. And if you think there's anybody else interested in real estate that would benefit from this, could you please share it with them? You know, but maybe you're not getting the lead capture that way, so you could change that up a little bit and say, introduce myself, so. But any other question? Kim, how's Napa? Good. Kim's working on a deal right now that that looks very attractive on numbers, and so I'm hoping that she gets it. So
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. You're muted.
I think you muted, Kim, if you were trying.
Yeah, it's going good, but it's a tough world right now to raise money.
Yeah.
People are skittish.
No questions. No questions.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'll follow up with you, Kim. So
Perfect.
okay.
Yes, yeah. I need some help.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Yeah. Great.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Colm. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah,
random,
definitely.
man.
And please don't forget to share the outline with us. Where I'm sure we could probably get some value out of that. Particularly those podcasts. I would like to listen to almost all of them.
Those 4 are good, and then I'll send the hyperlinks in a short email to Braden. So
Awesome. Perfect.
all right.
Perfect.
See you guys.
Thank you so much.
See y'all.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Les, take it away.
All right, we have a couple people left here. I think it's
I think pretty much I think most people have kind of signed off. And August and Alina, do you guys have any additional comments?
Any questions, anything, any support we could provide?
Yeah, I think they may be away from their phones at this point.
Only Marco.
Oh yeah, Dr. Mackel is just signed back in. Let's see if he has any comments before we wrap up. We may call this one a little early. I think it's still connecting to audio. Yep. Yeah, Dr. Mackel, how are you? I think you're muted if you're trying to say something.
Yeah, I'm on. Hi, how are you? How you doing?
We doing fantastic. Yeah. So, any comments? What are your thoughts?
Oh, it was a good session. It's high level information, and maybe a lot above my head, but it's good to hear.
Yeah, well, I think no information is lost. There's still a lot to take from a lot of this, from what everybody has to say, and what I found is that with the XSITE Capital, we've been able to do things relatively differently for the most part, and with great results. But because I think we've just been able to tap into the energies of people in our community who just kind of believe in the vision of what we're doing. So we've not really had to go after classic sales tactics to go to get people to invest. Just mostly focused on giving value to people in our communities, and that is amazingly translated to investments for us, and we've not really had problems raising funds for the deals that we've been able to bring to. And I think part of it also is what Colm said, that when he thinks about XSITE Capital, he thinks about conservative underwriting. and us focused on the certain. I think that's something that we hear from all the old schoolers, all the people that know what's going on in the industry. They're always saying that we are super conservative, but we know who our avatar is, and we know who we're trying to convince to join us on this projects. And we know we have to come correct, and we have to under promise and over deliver. And that's why we take pride in, being super conservative and not taking any shortcuts, and really focusing on all the details to make sure that we crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and not missing anything when it comes to presenting these deals to our community. So
Okay, well, that's quite helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have you been? How's the practice and life?
Move along in seasons, ebbs and flows. But everything's
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Well, I think if are there any other comments or questions, I may be able to give you back a lot of your maybe another 20 minutes of your life back. August.
No, I probably just need to talk with one of the three of you about the deal that I know was sent out a couple weeks ago, and just to kind of see where that is and see if I need to get involved with that. I'm still pulling some things together to kind of
So did that deal, the deal in South Carolina you're talking about, the Columbia, South Carolina deal?
I believe so. I know you sent a sample draft out.
Oh yeah. So that sample draft is just for a potential deal that is in the pipeline. So it's not actually formally under contract yet. So
all right.
But we certainly taking soft commits for that, for the future deal that is coming. So if you feel like you're ready to go, certainly just let me know, and we'll definitely have you ready to see it as one of the first people that gets to review the deal when it comes.
All right, that sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, you're already on that list, so you don't really need to do much at this point. So you will you will get one of the first looks on the next deal when it comes, because we've had a lot of people asking us about when the next deal is coming. We have about 3 of them right now in different stages of marinating. Right. And we'll see which one that comes under contract first, and we'll definitely pass that out to our community. But we're super excited about the prospects of what we may be able to bring to you soon. So
okay, sounds good.
All right, excellent.
Appreciate
Any
it.
other questions? Thank you, Dr. Mackel. Any other questions? August, Imliv, Elena.
We have a few people kind of joining late. So the presentation will come kind of ended a few minutes ago, but we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Oh, wow. Carmen, how are you?
Hey guys.
Great to see you, Julius. How are you?
Really great to see you too. Absolutely. Carmen works at Romtech, one of the companies that I'm an investor in. I'm also an advisor for the company. She's like the engine that keeps everything going in that company. And we were just in Chicago hanging out together. So it was great. I think a lot of the people signing in right now are on the Pacific time. So they're using the 6 o'clock time from then.
Oh, that makes sense.
I just got something to work, so I apologize for being late.
No worries. No worries at all. We actually just we had a bunch of people on there. Most people left because the main speaker was already done. I see Dr. Andre Thomas, who I just spoke to not too long ago, and who is ready to invest in our next deal. Andre is a big brother of mine, an orthopedic surgeon and fantastic human being. Andre, are you able to?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, sir.
Words?
No, I'm just excited to be a part of it. I'm sorry, I'm just getting home from work, so I missed everything. But just trying to be involved and as active as possible, and excited to be a part.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andre. Really appreciate you. So, Carmen, how are things going with you?
Things are going great. Summer is coming in Vegas, so bracing myself for the really hot weather. Everything's great.
That's fantastic, and welcome. We look forward to seeing you on more of these meetups, and now and in the future, and hopefully you'll be coming on one of these deals with us one of these days. Once you're ready.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, but it's certainly great to see your face. Thanks for coming on video. Yeah. Any other comments from anyone? No. Well, great. Well, I think we'll call it. It's my pleasure as the leader of this company, XSITE Capital, to present this meetup, the exciting world of multifamily meetup to you guys. We know you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us. Elena did say that she was driving, so that's why she's not able to chat. But we look forward to seeing you at the next meetup, which is going to be the first Monday of July. Oh, actually, I hope that is not July 4th.
It is July 4th. So it's gonna be the second Monday of July.
It's gonna be the second Monday of July. Then it's not gonna be the first Monday of July. So, and we will look forward to seeing you then. We'll certainly send out communications about it. And if we don't have your information yet, please throw it in the chat, and we will make sure that that you get all the. Actually, we should have your email addresses because you have to register for this. So, but. You could be anywhere else in the world. You're here with us. We don't take it for granted. And we look forward to continuing to contribute to your growth and hopefully being able to provide value to you and you to us. So have a fantastic rest of your week, people. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Colm.